Scott, the coach of the North Melbourne Footy Club, has been good enough to join us. Good morning to you, Brad.
Morning, boys.
Fascinating week in footy on and off the field. Let's go back to last weekend. There was signs of you in the box where you look clearly frustrated. I don't know whether you're prepared to admit to your frustration levels at the time, particularly about the free kick, one in particular against Andrew Swallow. We know that you went and spoke to Jeff Goosh and presumably one or two other people during the week. Did you get any satisfaction out of that meeting?
I certainly did. Look, the frustration, the high tackle issue has been blown right out of proportion. And I want to make it clear that I didn't go and speak to the umpires. Adrian Anderson rang me. So I was prepared just to accept that our tackling technique wasn't good enough and get on with the job. But Adrian made a specific point of calling me. And I raised with him that the high tackling issue wasn't the thing I was incredibly frustrated about. It was the 5 free kicks that went against Hamish McIntosh and boundary throw-ins. To which Jeff Geeshan said they're all wrong. So, we make mistakes. Hamish is doing the right thing at boundary throw-ins. So from that, we just got on with it. And somehow this is a bigger story than it should have been.
I guess it seems to be a big story because punters who are just people like me who aren't, fundamentally and profoundly involved in the outcome of games are watching games, and we're getting frustrated going back to the West Coast Eagles style of dropping to the knees. We're getting frustrated by it, and Andrew Swallow looked incredibly frustrated when that free kick was paid against him. Did he talk to you after the game, or did you seek him out to talk to him about, about that particular incident with Luke Shuey?
Yeah, look, I think that the thing with the frustration comes from the fact that we'd spoken about it at length and we'd trained it and we were aware of what they were doing. So, with that awareness, I think the fact that he still got Shuey high, I think he was incredibly frustrated.
Yeah.
That he didn't get the technique right. So, I think now the umpires also have a really acute awareness of what's going on. So, look, when Adrian asked me about it, I said to him, mate, look, I don't really have a solution. I don't think that there's anything that we can put into the rules, because if you look at those tackles in real time at, real speed, they look high. So I think the umpires have got to pay what they see.
Sure. Good morning, Brad. It's Tim here. In light of the new interpretation that's been handed down by the AFL in the last 24 hours, that would deem the Lindsay Thomas approach on the ball, and we all think that it was terrible what happened to Gary Rowan at the time. I didn't think that Lindsay Thomas did anything wrong. But what are you going to be teaching your players now? Because that has actually been outlawed, what Lindsay Thomas did.
Well, it's back to the drawing board, because I'm not sure, to be honest. We're going to have to go and study a whole lot of film and start to work out what we can and can't do. But look, the number one instruction I give to my players is that we try and keep our feet at all costs. So I suppose that's the number one thing, that when you're going for the footy, you've got to stay on your feet. And if you lose your feet and you slide in, and your feet happen to be up, then you risk giving away a free kick or getting reported. So that's probably the starting point for us. But in Lindsay's case, I thought that his sole focus was the ball, and he didn't know what was around him. So I suppose now we're getting to the situation where we've got to ask him to go into that contest, stay on his feet, and basically hope the opposition player does the same.
Scotty, just picking up on something you said, what is the correct technique you want your boys to apply to tackling?
Well, the problem is, Dan, that now you can't bump. I mean, you can bump, but you risk, if you bump,
head high,
you get reported. So if you're getting to the ball first, you're concerned about a couple of things. That the players are concerned about, well, I can't slide in, I can't bump. If I make incidental contact and hit them high, I risk getting reported, even though you've probably got a case at the tribunal if your sole focus is the ball. So really, the instruction that we give the boys is to get your body in between the opposition player and the ball. But that now is becoming difficult, because if you go in with low and turn your hip and he's got his head down and your hip hits him in the head, you end up at the tribunal. So it's a really difficult one now for players.
Brad, you've got a really big game of footy this Sunday. We'll hear it live here on 11:16 SEN. Todd Goldstein's back in the side. What have you needed to see from him, and what do you need to see from him going forward for him to be the player that he looked like he was going to become through 2011?
Goldie just needs to revisit his work rate, and whether it was just a subconscious thing that last year he was one out and he had to do all the work himself, and his work rate was outstanding. And he's a supreme athlete, so he's capable of doing that. But subconsciously, maybe he thought he had Hamish's backup and he wasn't working as hard as he did last year. So we just needed to, I wanted to be preemptive with that. I didn't want to have the same situation going on in round 10. So we dropped him back to the VFL. He responded really well, and so he comes straight back in. We hope that he'll start to bring the work rate to games that he brought last year.
And you just divulged that the Geese said 5 free kicks against Hamish were incorrect.
Yeah.
Can you share with us what were they?
They're all apparently holding on Dean Cox, but basically it's the one that I think the fans get frustrated at.
Confused on.
And all the players stop and look at the umpire and try and work out which way it's going to go. So unfortunately, all of those went against Hamish and all of them went to Cox. And basically, Rowan Saws said that, look, we got those wrong. Hamish is doing nothing wrong, but we'll send down an umpire just so Hamish goes in the games knowing that his technique at boundary throw-ins is right.
And you'll be credited with 5 before the game starts on the weekend.
Well, this is my point, Tim. I mean, approaching, speaking to the umpires department doesn't really help you at all, does it? I mean, all it does is I just wanted to make sure that Hamish went into the game. Because by the end of the game, he was going to boundary throw-ins thinking he was going to give away a free kick at every boundary throw-in.